even something big might not be the something big that you want to happen, you know?
Yeah, for sure. We trained to defend the embassy and not to attend a ceremony.
Yeah.
And even then, we're still acting in our capacity. We're still there to defend. But we had so many external entities there to also defend that we were almost useless. But it was still a incredible experience.
Welcome to the Military Bottom Line podcast, where we learn from veterans and those currently serving how to make the most out of a military contract. We're here to motivate, inspire, and help you leverage your service to positively impact you professionally, personally, and financially during your military career and beyond. Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in for another episode of the Military Bottom Line podcast. It means a ton for you guys to tune in and give it a listen. I really appreciate it. I'm still learning, but really having a lot of fun as I go. On today's episode, I've got somebody with a unique story, Ben Landon, who was in the Marine Corps for about 6 years, took advantage of the Marine Corps embassy program, and decided that he just wanted to keep living in Israel after that. He has since been going to school in Israel, living there, and is now pursuing a MBA program at some of the high-level American universities, everything from Harvard to Dartmouth. And he kind of talks about a unique program for other people coming out of the military that maybe want to be pursuing Ivy League education. I hope you guys enjoy the show. Hey, Ben, thanks for joining me today.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. I know you've been in Israel for a couple of years, which is pretty awesome. And you're not even in the Marine Corps anymore. But I kind of want to get an idea of like, how the heck did you end up there, and what are you doing?
Yeah. So I did the MSG program in the Marines, and basically it's guarding diplomatic facilities overseas. And I did a year in Africa, and out of Africa I came to Tel Aviv. And then out of Tel Aviv I went to MSAL, which is like a rapid deployment unit, covering the same things as the embassy program. And then I just liked Israel so much when I was here that I was like, let me see if I can use my GI Bill and come back to Israel. So ever since I got out in 2018, I've been using the GI Bill to go to college here in Israel. And it's all in English. It's an international school. So it's a pretty sweet deal.
Wow. How long were you in the Marine Corps for?
I was in for 6 years. I did 3 years in San Diego, where I met you.
Yeah.
And after that, I did 3 years of MSG. So 1 year in Africa, 1 year in Israel, 1 year based out of Quantico.
Okay. Was the embassy program something that you knew going into the Marine Corps that existed and that you were pursuing, or how'd you end up taking that route?
No, actually, I had no idea. Actually, when I was in boot camp, my senior drill instructor was an MSG, and that's all he could talk about. But that wasn't really what turned me onto the program. I actually kind of just, in boot camp, you zone out, so you don't really know what he's talking about. So I think it was just like they had their road show at one point, and it was something that every Lance Corporal does to get out of work. And so I went to their road show, and when they came to Pendleton, and after, like, once they gave their pitch, I was like, this is a really good opportunity to actually go overseas and do something that I want to do in my career rather than what the Marine Corps tells me I have to do.
Yeah. At that point, did you think you were going to, how was your career going? Did you think you were going to stay in, or did you only extend to do this opportunity?
So at that point, I had no idea what I was going to do, whether I was going to re-enlist or get out. That was year 3 out of 5 because I was an aviation guy. So I had to extend a year to do the program. And then while I was on the program is when I decided that I would get out.
Okay. Did you get out because you knew the Marine Corps couldn't get better than what it was for you on MSG, or why'd you end up getting out?
It's pretty common for MSGs because it's an independent duty. So you're not in the realm of the Marine Corps where every staff sergeant is going to yell at you.
Yeah.
You become friends with your deck commander, who's either it's a staff NCO, so you become friends with them almost. There's
Mhm.
still a working relationship, but on a certain level, because you're diplomats, you have to be able to use your real names, and you build a rapport with them. So I don't know. It was. I actually wanted to stay in the Marine Corps and become an officer,
Hmm.
even as far as when I lived in Tel Aviv when I was serving here. And it just didn't work out between getting the package sent up and with my extension. There's a lot of paperwork that had to be done the right way, and it just didn't end up working out. So
Did you apply for a MESEP or what package were you putting in?
right, so I was going for MESEP.
Okay.
I you get good staff NCOs and not super good staff NCOs. So
Sure.
I had a staff NCO he's kind of the bro kind of gunny. So, you know, he wasn't a big fan of talking to the first sergeant. So when they came to do their inspection, you meet the first sergeant, you meet the CO, and it just ended up not working out. So,
Hmm. So then
yeah.
you did 3 years on MSG, 1 year in Africa. Tell us a little bit about that. What was that experience like?
Oh, yeah. So I lived in Djibouti. Um, as much as it doesn't sound like a great country, the
Mhm.
country itself is very impoverished, and the government is not so democratic.
Mhm.
Um, it actually wasn't that bad. So we, as diplomats, kind of we have extra funding to have nicer things. So as an MSG, we lived in a kind of a mansion
Hmm.
for where we were. We had 7 bedrooms. We each had our own bathroom.
Wow.
We had a gym inside of the house and outside of the house. We had a basketball court on the outside. We had basically a movie theater kind of room.
Huh.
We had a pool table. We had a foosball table. We had a bar in our house because back then, this was before, like now, since the command has made it to where you can't drink at post or
Oh, really?
something. Yeah, they tightened the restrictions on alcohol in the Marines' house.
Gotcha.
So that's after my time. Um, so yeah, we had a pretty sweet setup.
So,
Um,
I mean, you're in impoverished African country. I mean, I want to assume it's kind of like the slums, but then you've got like this dope mansion that you're living in, like in the middle of the slums, essentially, or is it not quite like that?
no, so we actually lived at the embassy. So it
Okay,
was about 70 yards from our front door to the back door of the embassy compound,
gotcha.
or to the embassy building itself. So
Well, I might be mistaken. Most, if not all, Marine housing when on MSG duty is like within the same compound as the embassy buildings and offices. Is that correct?
when it's possible, yeah. So for example, in Tel Aviv, our house was about 2.5 miles away from the embassy,
Okay.
um, which is, we do drills. Like we have a set number of drills we have to do.
Hmm.
So sometimes our deck commander, if he's in a bad mood, will make us run from our house to the embassy, then begin the drill. It's fun.
Gotcha. So what does life on MSG duty look like?
So I didn't actually go to one of the bigger embassies like London or
Mm,
Bangkok or something like that.
mm,
But the ones like I was in Djibouti and Tel Aviv, and typically if you're on a day shift, you're working 3 days on, 3 days off, or 4 days on, 2 days off. However your schedule's set up. Typically you have a 4 day period max, and then you get at least 2 days off.
okay.
It's completely independent. You have to work out on your own. Well, in Africa, we had a cook and a maid, so that kind of made things easy. But when I moved to Israel, I had to cook on my own, and I had to basically live your whole life on your own. Just you're given amenities, which is pretty nice.
So that's interesting that you say in Africa you had a cook and a maid, but in Israel you didn't. Is that because like they try to make a crappy duty station better with certain luxuries, or why do you have that in some places but not all the places?
Yeah, that's a good question. So it's actually it comes directly out of the Marines' paycheck, the cook or the maid or a combination.
Oh, interesting.
Um, it just happens that, or just so happens that in Africa, the average wage is like $300 a month.
Mm.
So in Tel Aviv, it's actually more than the American average
Oh,
because
wow.
so we couldn't actually, when we started looking at prices to have somebody come cook 3 meals a day, it just wasn't feasible.
Gotcha. So it's not like it's coming out of the, Marine Corps.
Right. Yeah. It's 100% coming out of the Marines, and that you have to cover more than just their salary. You have to cover their insurance, like their
Oh,
um, the package that if you get fired, the severance package,
wow.
you have to cover everything. So
Wow.
it's not
So
as simple.
did you ever find yourself like, one dude where it's like, no, I don't want to pay for this. I'm going to be cheap and I'm going to save my money. Like, I imagine that could create some conflicts.
Well, luckily, in Tel Aviv, we didn't have it. So
Yeah,
that probably would have been the case here
sure.
because there is really good food here, and you don't always want to have somebody cook for you. You want to be able to sustain yourself for a lower amount of money.
Hmm.
But in Africa, it's not like you have a ton of options for food. So you're kind of just like, okay, I'll pay the price and then I'll get my meals made for me.
Gotcha. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
See, would you say you had an overall positive experience with MSG?
Oh, absolutely. For sure.
Yeah.
Um, there were times when, you get undermanned and, Marine Corps, you make the best of what you have.
Yeah.
So I remember at one point when I was here in Tel Aviv, I was working like 2 weeks straight of 12-hour shifts.
Mm.
And, at that point you just become a zombie.
Yeah.
And I was working a night shift. So it was like 6 to 6. Like it was pretty rough.
Yeah.
And, you also have meetings during the day, sometime like at least once or twice a week. And then you have to have drills.
Yeah.
And if it's not coordinated properly, you're going to lose sleep.
Sure.
Yeah. So it gets pretty rough sometimes. But
And so you were in Tel Aviv for your middle year, and then you end up in Quantico for your MSOC kind of quick reaction stuff.
right.
And at the point you left Tel Aviv, were you like jonesing to get back there as soon as possible, or I mean, how did you make that decision to get out and move back to Israel? Like that's not common.
Yeah, it's not common. So when I left here, I was just like, I wanted to come back. I didn't know in what capacity I would come back. And
Mhm.
I heard about the school. It's actually in the next town up. It's called Herzliya. I heard about the school it was taught in English, and you can get your undergrad in 3 years rather than 4. And so I looked into it, but at that point I was like, when I got to Quantico, I bought a truck. Like I didn't plan on going back immediately.
Mm.
So it was about the time of putting in applications because I knew I wanted to get out that I decided that, hey, Israel sounds like the best choice.
Interesting. So what about, I mean, I've never been to Israel, and I would love to go at some point. But after living in Israel for a year, what about it was like so attractive to you to move back?
Right. So Israel's it's a place that it's westernized, but it's also a place where I don't know if you've ever been to the South and there's like that real Southern hospitality. Like if you picture going and visiting Cody
Yeah.
and he's just like, hey man, come on in. I have food for you. I have cake, whatever you want. I've got it.
Yeah.
It's almost that sense, but it's stronger here. And they have a very, very strong sense of family and culture.
Mm.
And it was just, and here it's mandatory military service. So when I talk about my military, they're all like, oh, they have 17 stories lined up as well.
Sure.
So it's actually really cool. And I related really well to the people here. And, once you start learning a little bit of the Israeli history, whether you are pro-Israel or not pro-Israel,
Yeah.
you start learning that they've actually gone through a lot of struggle as a country, and they're only like 72 years old.
Mm. Mm.
So, it's pretty incredible the culture that they've built and just the way things work here. It's incredible. And it's actually really funny because Israelis, when they find out that I moved here by choice, that I'm not Jewish and I'm not Israeli, they're just like, why?
Huh. So you moved back there to go to school, and you found out, I mean, I've never heard of anybody using their GI Bill for an international school abroad. Was that complicated, or what did that look like?
No, I'm actually not the first person to go to this school from the military in the U.S. They have a liaison that works with the VA, just like any other
Yeah.
school in the U.S. would have. And so right after the year starts, I send her my course load, and it gets verified by my course coordinator, and then she processes it with the VA.
Hmm.
They have a really popular counterterrorism degree here that a lot of military members will come, and mostly officers. They actually have a program that they send officers in the Navy, the Army, and the Marines even.
Hmm.
And I've met them like every time they come through. They get put in diplomatic housing and they go get their master's in counterterrorism, and it's
Interesting.
all paid for them.
Wow. Wow. Okay. So it's as far as the process and application process and VA, benefits, it's the same as going to any school in the US from what it sounds like.
Yeah, pretty much. But I think I kind of got lucky because this is a school that other military members come to.
Mm.
Like it's a common thing here.
Yeah.
As uncommon as it is, it's common. So they actually have somebody that works specifically for that.
Cool.
But for other people that I know that have gone to international schools, they just go to whoever is in charge of their degree and they say, "Hey, email this person."
Yeah. Yeah. So what program are you doing there?
So I'm doing business and entrepreneurship. It's a
Okay.
double major.
Cool.
Pretty sweet. Israel's pretty well known for startups and their high-tech industry, all the technology they have. So pretty sweet degree.
And is it standard over there for those degrees to only take 3 years?
Yeah. So yeah, all degrees here take 3 years.
Interesting. So you're guaranteed to have another year of your GI Bill available to you, essentially.
Right. And I'm going to use it actually. So I'm not just stopping at the end of my 3 years. Like I did this. It was like all the stars lined up for me to where if I do this and I do my 3 years here, I can immediately transition back to the US for my master's.
Nice. Okay. So what does that look like? Are you in the middle? You're in your third year right now of university there?
Right. So we start in 2 weeks. We start the third year. Yeah. So actually, because of the Jewish holidays, we start later. So
Okay.
yeah.
So you're applying to US schools now. You're gonna leave Israel at this point?
Right. Yeah. So I'm trying to get into Ivy League schools. So there's actually a really cool service for veterans. It's called Service to School.
Service to
And
school. Okay.
yeah, the number 2, not like Keo. And they're really good. Like they're partnered and have people on in the admissions committees of Ivy League schools. So specifically get veterans in.
Into Ivy League.
Right.
Okay. So what does that program look like? I've never heard of that program. So kind of give me and everybody else an idea of like what do they do for you other than having kind of a advocate for you on the application boards? How did they help?
Right. So they give you an ambassador, like a current veteran student that's at the school, and they give you application assistance. So they'll help you with your essays. They'll help you get all the documents you need collected. They basically just assist you. It's if you paid somebody to help you,
Okay.
you'd be paying like $400 an hour.
Wow.
Whereas these guys do it for free, and it's incredible.
Do they have data showing like a improved admittance rate through that program or anything? Or
I don't think so. I mean, obviously, you have to make yourself somewhat competitive to get into these kind of schools. Like you can't.
Still no guarantee.
Right. It's still a competitive process. But they significantly improve your chances because they have somebody specifically on the admissions panel that is like, I can speak to the veterans' experiences and compare them to people that didn't go to the military.
Yeah. Yeah. So are you looking at every Ivy League school, or do you have any in particular that you're interested in?
So I don't have every Ivy League school. I'm doing my top 3 are Dartmouth, Wharton, and Harvard.
Cool.
Which is two of the top three, and
Yeah.
then I think Dartmouth is like number 8.
Cool. And do you want Ivy League? Like, what's your reason for pursuing those schools?
So out of the MBA program at Ivy League schools, businesses come to those schools to recruit their students.
Mm.
So I think the Ivy League schools do publish their statistics on this,
Mm-hmm.
but I think most of them have like 97% of their graduates have a job within 3 months.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that's pretty significant.
Oh, right.
So where are you in the application process? Do you already have contacts at each one of these schools that are helping you through that service to school program in the application process?
I have some schools, not all of them. I'm talking to people from Harvard and from Dartmouth. I haven't gotten to anybody from Wharton yet.
Okay.
For an MBA, you have to take the Gmat,
Yeah.
and you have to do fairly well on it. So
Uh-huh.
I've been studying nonstop for the past couple of weeks, and
When
probably in about a month or so, I'll plan to take the test.
Oh, okay. So you don't have it scheduled yet?
No, it's something that you can do online, and you can just show up like next day.
Huh. Okay. I didn't know if that was like the MCAT where you got to like schedule it months out or something like that.
Yeah, they actually made an online version of the test so that for the pandemic.
Mm.
So I'm gonna try to do my first one online so I can do it from the comfort of my home.
Yeah.
And
See how it
and
goes.
then I mean, the major benefit of that is I don't have to write the essay. So there's a 30-minute full essay that you have to write, creating an argument based on an article. So you have to read, understand, and write an article or write a full essay in half an hour. So
yeah, not fun.
I get to skip that part. So
Do you get unlimited attempts at the GMAT?
no, so you get in a calendar year you get 8 attempts, and you can take it every 2.5 weeks.
Cool. Okay. That's significant. So you're in your last year now, and has it worked out that you're going to be using exactly 75% of your GI Bill? Okay.
Yeah, so it's worked out perfectly. So the academic semesters here, they more or less mirror the US. Just the scheduling is different as far as we start later in the year. So the GI Bill is designed to give you 4 years of 9 months studying.
Okay.
So I've used 9 months for 3 years, would be 27 total months, and then I get 9 months remaining.
How long is the MBA program that you're looking at? I mean, are you going to have to pay for 1 year out of pocket?
Right. So MBA programs are traditionally 2 years. So
Yep.
I will end up paying 1 year out of pocket. And, I'm trying to be smart and go to an Ivy League school that costs $100,000 a year. So I'm going to have to apply to as many scholarships as I can find.
Yeah. Have you sure you have some time before you actually need to be knocking on scholarship doors, but are there an abundance of those scholarship opportunities?
Right. So actually, I reached out to the financial aid office of Dartmouth, and they sent me a few links of like some really good scholarships for veterans, like specifically. And then they also like on their website, they post multiple scholarship opportunities.
Nice. So ones that will cover the entirety of, $100,000 a year. That's that's steep.
It's very steep. No, I think most of them are around the $15,000 range. So I have to really put in some time and like a lot of effort to get these scholarships. But when you're looking at $100,000, this much, knocking it down as much as you can, really, it's worth it.
Sure. I mean, Harvard, Dartmouth, those are all private schools, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in your first year within an MBA program, is the GI Bill going to actually cover 100% of it, or is there going to be a gap?
So there's going to be like a minimal gap. It's not actually $100,000 for the tuition. The tuition's around $72,000, I think, for each of them. The GI Bill covers up to $27,000, and then the VA and the school, because they participate in Yellow Ribbon, will each contribute another $22,000.
Wow. Wow.
So I'll be about $3,000 or $4,000 short,
So
but that first year is almost fully covered.
I've heard of the Yellow Ribbon program. I've never used it, so I don't know a ton about it. What is it exactly?
Right. So the Yellow Ribbon schools, they're the private institutions because they can charge more tuition than a state school can.
Mm.
What they do is the VA will put out, or they'll front another 20-something thousand, and then the school itself will match that amount.
Okay. So it's kind of like a additional scholarship for anybody using the GI Bill.
Right.
Gotcha. Cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, hopefully this GMAT goes well. Do you have a first choice out of these schools?
I'm leaning towards Dartmouth, but I don't know how anybody could say no to Harvard if they get accepted.
Yeah, that's fair. I for a moment thought about, like, because I have GI Bill left, I was like, maybe I should just like see if I can get a Harvard MBA just to say I did. But then, yeah, you're going through the work. I'm like, I don't want it that bad, so it's probably not going to work out very well for me.
I think the median salary for like the top 10 is like $150,000 a year.
Wow, that's not bad. Especially coming from enlisted Marine Corps pay, that ain't bad.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So
even being overseas.
Yeah, no doubt. Are your hands pretty much cleaned and done with any military service at this point, or what are your feelings towards your time that you've done and the potential for continuing any kind of career?
So I've thought about it. When I first moved to Israel, I wanted to do I think it's the AMA or IMA.
Yeah.
To be able to keep my reserve status at least.
Mm-hmm.
But that process became, because I'm international, it's almost impossible. So I kind of just said, okay, it's not meant to be, and I'm going to go to the next best case. I think if I came back to the U.S. next year, I'll be 28 at the time that I start school again. So it's not very feasible for me to go back military.
Because they won't allow a 28-year-old to come back in, or? I mean,
I think they would. But once you get outside of your IRR date, it's very, very difficult to get back in.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah. I did the IMA for a couple of years before switching to the Guard, and it was a pretty sweet gig for anybody that's trying to keep their foot in the door but doesn't want to fully commit to it.
Right.
Right on. So, I mean, looking back at your 6 years in the Marine Corps, I mean, would you do anything differently? What are some of these? Yeah, let's start with that. Would you do anything differently?
I'm not sure. I think everything that's led up to where I am in my life now is just, it's the experience that I needed.
Yeah.
It's like a common theme in the Marine Corps, and kind of embrace the suck. But the suck is where you're made.
Yeah.
And so while it is like the suck, that gives you the best experience you'll ever have.
Nice.
So even though I went, I didn't particularly love living in Djibouti, but it brought me to Israel. So, and I absolutely love living here.
Yeah.
So looking back now, I don't think there's anything I would change.
Yeah, that's awesome. What, because you were in Israel during that transition of capital and embassy, American embassy, right?
Right.
What was living through that moment in history like? I mean, you were at the embassy working there and basically witnessed it all firsthand.
Yeah, so I was actually in MSAL at that time. So I was part of the group that deployed here to do the security at the compound in Jerusalem.
Yep.
It was pretty incredible. When you're there, you're kind of just, because I worked the night shift the night before and I had like an hour and a half of sleep before the ceremony started. And, you're kind of just beating your head against the wall, like, stay awake. And then when you go back into the command post and we have the computers pulled up for the ceremony that's outside that we can't actually see, it's incredible. It's a huge moment in history, whether you hate the idea of it happening or you love it. it's still a big moment in history.
Yeah.
I think actually at one point Iran put a bounty on the Marines' heads that were guarding the compound.
Wow.
Not that was, Iran's not very close to Jerusalem, so
Yeah.
it's not like we were worried, but it speaks to the significance of that event happening.
Sure.
And it's a very unique experience. You get to meet heads of state from multiple countries all at the same time.
Did you think when you either joined the Marine Corps or just started the embassy program that that you would be involved in something so significant?
No, I don't think so at all. They kind of like tease you in the schoolhouse for the MSG program that, something big can happen while you're on this program.
Yeah.
But it's so few and far between
Sure.
that, it's like, okay, we have 190 something facilities that we're at. It's not going to happen at mine.
Mm-hmm.
And then
even something big might not be the something big that you want to happen,
Yeah, for sure. We trained to defend the embassy and not to attend a ceremony.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
And even then, we're still acting in our capacity. We're still there to defend, but we had so many external entities there to also defend that we were almost useless. But it was still an incredible experience.
How do you feel? To close it up, I feel like the common stereotype of Marines is that we're like rocks, that we eat crayons kind of thing. And I don't think many crayon eating rocks would be pursuing a Harvard MBA or anything like that. I mean, how do you feel like that stereotype holds up after, experiencing the Marine Corps and being in the Marine Corps for 6 years? Do you think there's much to that, or are you an anomaly?
No, I don't think I'm an anomaly. Some of the smartest people I've ever met have been in the Marine Corps. And then if you look at a branch like the Air Force that's regarded as the smartest branch, you can find some rocks there too. So
yeah,
I think it's part of the rivalry between branches, I would say.
Sure.
And it's fun. It's fun to be like, yeah, the purple crayon is my favorite one. I eat it for breakfast every other day. But stereotypes don't make it what it actually is.
Sure.
There's some of the smartest people I've met have been in the Marine Corps.
Definitely. Yeah, I found that to be true also. I mean, I think I've met way more ambitious people in the Marine Corps than I have probably in every other area of my life. So, yeah. With that said, whether it be advice given to somebody new to the Marine Corps or even just new to the embassy program, what kind of advice would you give?
I would say don't get sucked into where you are right now, because if you start closing doors and putting your head down just to get through where you are, you're going to miss an opportunity. So for me, it's something I did as a Lance Corporal. I was just like, I didn't like my work. I didn't like being a helicopter mechanic. Yeah. So I just put my head down and grinded. And I was like, you know what? I have 5 years of this. So next day,
Yeah.
And I met Rick and I got into the ministry with you.
Yeah.
And that opened a lot of doors in itself. And then that started to lift my eyes onto the horizon. Like, okay, I don't have to just go to work and suffer in the Marine Corps. I can have a life. And mostly just keep your eyes open. Don't get sucked into where you are at the moment. You can do whatever you want to do.
Definitely. I really like that. Yeah, I think, when things are bad and like you think that like, oh, my leadership sucks, my job sucks, like everything just seems like it's going to last forever in a crappy state. And it's just not the case. And like, you can focus on different aspects and different opportunities to get you out of that and find, that next opportunity that's going to really light your fire. So I think that's good advice. Awesome, Ben. Well, thanks for coming on. That's a very unique story. I've never met anybody else that has like done an abroad MSG program and just stayed there or went back to live. So that's very cool. I wish you the best of luck on your pursuit for an MBA at a high level school.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk.
Yeah, man. Thanks so much. Hey, guys, I hope you enjoyed that episode with Ben Landon. He's got a lot of experience and just overall friendly and optimistic, super bright. So I hope you guys enjoyed that episode and got something from it. If you guys are looking into the Service to School program, I'll put a link in that description and you can kind of find out the better ways to find your avenue into the Ivy League schools around the country. If you guys have not already, follow me on Instagram. That would be huge.